Greetings everyone, Umby here, and we're back with some more action for the VGC Draft League. This is actually a top 8 match. I know this is a little bit late, but we only recently got the replay for it. So for the sake of completion, we're just going to go over Hsoj versus Cellie for that top 8 match. You can see from the lineup here, Cellie's gone with Grimmsnarl, Bronzong, Tapu Fini, Hitmonlee, Rotom, Heat, and Regirock, versus Hsoj's Celesteela, Raichu, Pelipper, Toxtricity, Liepard, and Tapu Lele. For Cellie's side, they can potentially go into a Trick Room mode here. All the Pokemon, barring maybe Hitmonlee, work relatively well under that, versus the typical speed tiers from Josh's team. Raichu's typically running fast, and if you have Pelipper on the team, there's always the possibility of a Tailwind. And of course, Liepard, typically you see the Unburdened sets running pretty fast as well. Even though Tapu Fini's kind of like a mid speed tier, and so is Rotom H, they can all be geared to run slower and work still pretty well, relatively well under Trick Room, but the star of the Trick Room setting is going to be the Regirock if it can get going, especially if it gets like a weakness policy proc, for example. Grimmsnarl could also be like a really good utility, toss up some screens to give Regirock or even Tapu Fini some better survivability. On Josh's end, they're opting to go, they've left Kingdra at home, opting instead, looks like Celesteela and Tapu Lele are going to be doing some heavy lifting for their offense, and I think Celesteela's a really good option into Cellie's team, whether they're going fast or whether it's under Trick Room. Just the nice bulk it has in combination with the steel flying type makes it a really good matchup into a lot of what Cellie could bring here. Additionally, paired next to the Raichu, the best way that Cellie's going to be able to target Celesteela is through the Rotom. With Raichu's Lightning Rod next to it, it's not going to be able to use Thunderbolt, and it's forced to use Overheat instead. With Pelipper also in the squad, the Drizzle is going to make the Overheat near effective. So you combine that with Celesteela's bulk, and it's going to be something really, really hard to try and take down. So we'll see how that plays out as we get into the first turn of match 1, where Hsoj has opted to go for Celesteela and Raichu right off the bat, just as we mentioned. Bronzong and Rotom Heat gonna come out for Cellie, so they're already in a little bit of a pinch if we're reading into this correctly. Bronzong's gonna go ahead and protect, get a feel for what Hsoj is doing here, and what they're doing here is using Eerie Impulse on Raichu, so that's another way without having to use Drizzle to kind of neuter the Rotom. And this perfect setting for Celesteela is now it gets a weakness policy proc and immediately takes out the Rotom Heat. So starting off things really strong, has a +3 modifier to Celesteela's special attack. Could potentially roll the game here. Cellie's gonna answer back with a Tapu Fini, and they're gonna max. They're feeling a little bit pressured here, as one of their main ways of touching the Celesteela is kind of gone. They're going to get Max Guard to waste a turn of the Celesteela's Dynamax. Correctly so, as Max Overgrowth was targeted into it. Might have picked up the KO from its current special attack stat. Bronzong's going to support the Fini a little bit, using Ally Switch to absorb the next Max Overgrowth, but gives Tapu Fini some room to set up the Max Geyser and waste another turn of Celesteela's Dynamax. So Tapu Fini in a little bit of a better position here, but it does have to deal with the Eerie Impulse from the Raichu. But now it has at least the range set up from the Max Geyser to help boost its damage a little bit. Bronzong gonna go ahead and go into Gyro Ball into the Raichu. If it has Sash, it's already broken it as a result. And then Celesteela does a pretty hefty chunk to Tapu Fini with Energy Ball at +3. But Tapu Fini gets a chance to knock out the Celesteela. So crisis averted for now. Still a little bit of a long ways to go to clean up the battle. Both Dynamaxes are spent. Bronzong, pretty healthy, but not going to do too much damage on its own with just Gyro Ball. However, Tapu Fini reveals that it is a physical set as it play roughs into the Pelipper, doing a pretty hefty chunk of damage, 63%. Raichu's going to go ahead and nuzzle the Bronzong to paralyze it, probably hoping to potentially stop a Trick Room from occurring once the Trick Room is over. One turn of Trick Room left, so this gives Josh some room to operate with Raichu and Pelipper going to the next couple of turns. However, as Cellie tries to take out the Pelipper, it protects and receives a knockout for its own troubles from the Raichu Volt Switch. Bringing in Toxtricity, now we're down to a 3v2. Regirock comes in and unfortunately doesn't have the Trick Room to help it steal back the game. Fortunately though, with the Protect, it does get to stall out the rain, so that might help reduce some of Pelipper's damage, and perhaps it can live a little bit better to before it goes down. Alright, but unfortunately, Toxtricity's Overdrive is gonna do a ton of damage on its own, followed up by Pelipper. That's gonna do it for Regirock not long for this world. So really solid position from Josh. Like I mentioned, Celesteela looked like it was gonna be on kind of a force that Cellie had to address, and immediately engaging turn 1 to put the pressure on alongside the Raichu, I think is going to be a really tough combination to overcome here. So there's going to have to be an adjustment from Cellie in order to kind of mount a comeback here. Already in the hole a little bit, and additionally, the play rough from the Tapu Fini is revealed that this is a physical set. So while that puts some strategies to the imagination, for example, the Grimmsnarl with Prankster could be using Swagger while Tapu Fini is on Misty Terrain. So they may be going for that option to try and cheese out Josh. One thing they have to be careful about, however, is if Josh decides to keep Tapu Lele in the back, they could switch the Misty Terrain up, and that'll force the Swagger to actually confuse the Tapu Fini, which could be some trouble. We'll see here in game 2. Alright, and the tried and true Celesteela comes through from Josh and sitting next to Liepard this time. On the opposite end, Tapu Fini and Hitmonlee is going to come through. Hitmonlee with Misty Seed, so it looks like Unburden is going to come into play here. Both Tapu Fini and Celesteela end up maxing, and Liepard, now that it's aware that Fini is physical, is going to charm into it. Now, a little bit of that's mitigated through the coaching from Hitmonlee, but the Prankster is just going to outdo the Unburden speed and still puts Tapu Fini at a deficit. Meanwhile, Celesteela, it's a max Airstream to go ahead and get a KO on Hitmonlee. Now it's got a +1 to both speed and special attack to get the snowball potentially rolling. Grimmsnarl's going to fake out the Liepard, keep it from doing too much this turn, prevent any further attack drops. But in the face of Celesteela, it's just it's not going to be ineffective. Now it's going to hit the max Steel Spike to KO the Grimmsnarl, so not only another special attack boost from the Beast Boost, but now a +1 to defense, making Tapu Fini being physical is going to have a difficult time removing the Celesteela, most likely, even at his current health pool. Celesteela targeting what was going to be the Rotom with the max Rockfall to get another KO. Instead, the receiving end is going to be Tapu Fini as Rotom ally switches. Also prevents getting another Beast Boost from the potential knockout. Meanwhile, Tapu Fini targets the Raichu and hopes to getting a knockout itself, but at -1 attack, it's not really doing too much. Both max options spent, Celesteela targets into Tapu Fini with the Energy Ball and goes ahead and knocks it out. Rotom's last Pokemon on the field, and it's got a lot of work to do. Don't believe it can really do it, especially in the face of Eerie Impulse Raichu. And the only thing it can really target Celesteela with is really the only move it can use offensively is Overheat at this point. It'll get the knockout into Raichu just for its troubles, but Celesteela, with all of its boosts, doesn't really have to do too much. It can even use its Air Slash or Flash Cannon. Both, not very effective, but in a 2v1 situation like this, that's going to be the game, regardless of what move they choose. So, congrats to Josh. We already knew the results because we had the top 4 videos already out. But yeah, this is a really well-positioned game, a really strong matchup, just from Celesteela and Raichu alone putting on a ton of pressure. But also the Liepard for support. Just to switch up the matchup, especially as we saw the physical Tapu Fini, I think shows good preparation from Josh's end to cover all bases in the event that Celesteela couldn't just completely run away with the game. And we saw that there were some adjustments that Cellie did make, especially with the ally switch in the Trick Room. It wasn't a free win for Josh, but at the end of the day, the metal bamboo stick stand strong. All right, so hope you enjoyed that match as much as we did. I know things are out of order, but the next video we'll go over is going to be the final match of the competition. So look forward to that. Until then, see ya.